16th, 2021. Our invocation this evening will be offered by Lori Dean Wiley, member of Epic Church. Lori Dean.
If you'd like to join me, bow your heads. Lord, I just want to thank you for the opportunity to come to you, to request, to praise, and to thank you for all that you've provided for us. Please be with our local, our state, and our national leaders, and provide for our citizens as you see fit. It's in your name I pray. Amen.
If you would please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam City Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilmembers Huff.
Here.
Perkins.
Here.
Stewart.
Here.
DeLucy.
Here.
Steinmeier.
Here.
Hobart.
Here.
Mayor Ware.
Here. Before we get into our agenda this evening, I know we're all aware of the very critical situation that we have been dealing with for the last couple of days with the weather and the rolling blackouts. So I would just like to begin by asking the city manager to provide a report on the situation as it stands. Mr. City Manager.
Yes, good evening, Mayor and members of the council. As all of you are too painfully aware, the unprecedented level of cold weather that we're experiencing across the country right now has put a pretty significant demand on supply, particularly for natural gas and for electricity. The city is part of a very large consortium known as the Southwest Power Pool. That is a group of power suppliers across a 14-state region that services something close to 17 million people within that 14-state region. That area stretches all the way from Texas up into Montana, as far east as Missouri, and as far west over as extreme western Kansas. With that level of demand exceeding available supply the last few days, the Southwest Power Pool had to require participants in that pool to shed load, as it's known. So yesterday, we were required to shed 3 megawatts of energy. That impacted about 6,000 customers. This morning, we were asked to shed 4 times that. We were asked to shed 12 megawatts of energy. And over that 3-hour period, that impacted about 29,000 of our customers. So in the last 24 hours, there's been about 33,000 of our customers who at some interval of a 20 to 30 minute period were without power. That could last through tomorrow based on the cold weather. We really just don't know. It's a matter of, again, demand and supply. That's why the messaging has been placed out, asking everybody to try to conserve energy as best as possible. But as long as the cold weather persists, and with the city's participation and agreements in this power pool arrangement that we currently have, that is a reality we've been forced to deal with. Hopefully, as the weather improves, demand will slowly begin to creep back down and normalize, and we can get out from under this mess. Happy to answer any questions, Mayor, on that if you need, or otherwise we'll just proceed.
Okay, thank you, Mr. City Manager. I know that we will have opportunity for input on this later on our agenda this evening and during council member comments. But given we have a number of speakers signed up to address the council tonight, I would like to get on with our agenda, but I'm sure there will be comments and questions from the council as we proceed this evening. Prior to getting into that, in reviewing the order of the speakers and the agenda this evening, and the number of public hearings that we have scheduled for tonight, I would like, with the council's permission, to take the agenda out of order and do non-ordinance action items 2 and 3 immediately following the speakers, and then we will do the consent agenda and then move on with the rest of the agenda as it is presented. So we would need a motion to take the council agenda out of order. And
So
I
moved.
would, okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Okay, Madam City Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Sutton,
Here.
Perkins,
Yes.
Stewart,
Yes.
DeLucy,
Yes.
Steinmeier,
Yes.
Hobart,
Yes, sorry.
Mayor Weir.
Yes, thank you. I just think it'll make the meeting run a little bit smoother as I was trying to organize this. So now we will get on with our speakers. The first is Beth Franklin, who requests to speak to the council regarding the Square Streetscape project. Ms. Franklin. Beth, you're muted. There you go.
Sorry, this use of T. Okay, can you see me and can you hear me? That's the hardest part of the whole thing.
Can see you, but can barely hear you.
Give it my best shot. I am Beth Franklin, live at 1945 South Lake Drive, and I'm tonight representing.
Madam Mayor, I'm sorry, but I cannot hear her.
I don't know how to adjust the volume. Better? This is better, Karen?
Beth, would you maybe try to call back in on your phone?
Sure.
And then we can hear you. I mean, we might not be able to see you, but we might be able to hear you better.
Let me try.
So let me move on to Michael Baxley and I'll come back to you.
Okay. I'll get
Okay, all right. Michael Baxley requests to speak to the council regarding the importance of the Truman Connected project, the Englewood Arts and the Englewood Arts District. Mr. Baxley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Fantastic. My name is Michael Baxley. I'm the director of Englewood Arts, a fairly new nonprofit formed in the Englewood District. I'm here today to give my endorsement of the Truman Connected project on behalf of Englewood Arts. I just wanted to point out to the council a few key things and then I'll sign off. But having reviewed this project, we think this is a real, very important lifeline for independence. This project will improve the lives of current residents as well as making it more attractive for new residents by making it more accessible and attractive in this city. Many improvements in the sidewalks and the sewer systems, and our nonprofits focused on the renovation of the former medical building to be a new arts center. With this investment, it seems very logical that this Truman Connected project would bring all of these wonderful things together in a more harmonious independence. I just wanted to point out that efforts have already been underway through several community leaders, thanks to Cindy McLean and Tammy Parsons. They recently put together, with many others, a project called Chalk the Walk, which was designed to connect Englewood to the square. And then also Tammy Parsons and many other community members have been putting together an effort called Heart to Heart, which hopefully many of you have noticed, the hearts that connect Inglewood to the square and then go around the square. That's a fundraising effort for the West End Connection. But there's already efforts going to how do we bring unity to Independence? How do we bring people together in these significant areas? And it seems that the Truman Connected project is really an ideal and logical next step for Independence. So with the investments that's gone into all 3 or 4 key locations, we think that the Truman Connected project will really bring it home. And I just wanted to give my endorsement for that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Beth, do we have you back? Okay, we'll move to our next speaker, which is Bill Moore, request to speak to the council regarding the moratorium on new apartment development approvals. Mr. Moore.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council. My name is Bill Moore, and I am a longtime resident of the City of Independence. I am also an attorney with Rouse Fretz, White Goss, Gentile Roads, representing Crackerneck Creek LLC, the owners of the Falls at Crackerneck Creek Development, which we all refer to as the Bass Pro Project. I also represent Case and Associates Properties, Inc., the developer of the proposed 275-unit apartment project proposed to be located within the Falls of Crackerneck Creek. I am here this evening to speak against the adoption of Resolution number 21-717, a proposed 15-month moratorium on any new apartment permit applications. I'm not here tonight to argue the merits of this particular apartment project. That debate will occur before you on April 5th, when the matter is scheduled for a first reading and a public hearing. Your vote on this case is currently set for April 19th. My clients have been working and investing significant dollars and time to get this matter before you in April. For example, Case has already invested over $250,000 in this project and several months of time. This is a complex matter, not just a land use case, although it should be treated as such. It also involves the need to amend the Crackerneck Creek Tax Increment Financing Plan, even though no incentives are being sought to build the project. Why is this important, you may ask? For over 15 years, the owners, Crackerneck Creek LLC, have turned away developers seeking to build multifamily housing because the approved TIF plan does not allow for that use. However, in the past year, conversations have occurred with city representatives about amending the TIF plan to permit a high-quality apartment development such as is proposed. Knowing that the amendment still needed to occur, the owners began to listen to proposals. Case and Associates Properties, Inc. from Tulsa, Oklahoma, presented an outstanding proposal. It was especially exciting because they were not currently in the Kansas City market and they were not seeking any tax incentives. All of this was occurring with the full knowledge of the city. As I mentioned, a major financial investment was made. Both Crackerneck Creek LLC and Case, being sophisticated developers, understood the risks that they were taking. Those are normal risks in the development world. What nobody envisioned was that near the end of the approval process, the rug would be pulled out from underneath them. If the intent of Resolution number 21-717 is to prevent my client from completing the process that has not only begun, but is near the end of the process, then I would suggest to you that it is not only unfair, but it is unconscionable. Knowing full well that this project was in the pipeline, to wait until the 11th hour to pull the plug will send a resounding message to the development community. Stay away from Independence. I've spoken with several of you regarding Resolution 2117, and to a person, I was told that this resolution was not aimed at this project. So with that said, I urge you to amend Resolution 21-717 to clearly state that this project may proceed. To do otherwise will send the wrong message to the development community, a signal the City of Independence cannot afford. Therefore, I strongly urge you to either vote no on Resolution 2117 as it is currently drafted, or amend the resolution and allow my client's project to proceed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Beth Franklin is back, so we will go back to Ms. Franklin to speak to the council regarding the Square Streetscape project.
Okay, can you hear me now?
We can.
Good. I've got a different computer and this is the new one. This must be much better. So sorry about that. I'm not going to introduce myself again. I am here representing the Independence Chamber of Commerce. I'm the chair of the board of directors this year. I'm going to read my statement, if you don't mind. Last year, the Chamber of Commerce board of directors heard a presentation on this Square Streetscape project, which is a tongue twister for me. I apologize. And we endorsed the project at that time. The square represents one of the most unique business districts, not only in Independence, but the entire metro area. How many areas can claim the history that our square has? It is a focal point for out-of-town visitors who come to explore the history of President Truman, and that journey is not complete until they've taken in the square. In many instances, it is the impression that visitors leave with, and tonight we have an opportunity to enhance that impression. The Square Streetscape Plan has been years in the making. Previous citizen surveys show that 90% of residents say the enhancement of the square should be a community priority, which is why it was included in the Independence for All strategic plan. It is one of the 5 priorities that the chamber brought to the city council in 2017. And tonight you have an opportunity to check this one off the list. The cost of this project is substantial, but being able to leverage federal funds, which will cover 46% of the project, is an opportunity we may not get again. The improvements being made are not only aesthetic, but just as important is what's happening below the surface with the updates to the water and stormwater systems, which are well past their usable life. It will guarantee that the square will be able to be enjoyed for many generations to come. In a day and age when we are seeing the downsizing and eliminating of the big box stores, the square provides us with those one-of-a-kind retail experiences that we will need for our local economy to survive and thrive. Ultimately, the connection to the Truman Library in Inglewood will enhance the economic viability in all of these areas. So just as the Chamber Board gave their endorsement to this project, I encourage you to give your support to this project with your vote tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Mike Kopic, who requests to speak to the council regarding suspension of the Rental Ready program. Mr. Kopic.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. We're council members. I wanted to discuss the suspension a little bit. I know that there were 2 issues that were listed there. One being COVID. That's something that I wanted to specifically address. Obviously, that's been a concern for a year now, and seems a little late in the game to be doing a whole lot as numbers are going down. But what we do, and one of the things as a rental ready inspector, I kind of wanted to give you the boots on the ground, what we're doing. Obviously, we've got the mask, we've got the hand sanitizer that I carry with me, we've got, all those things. Distancing is something that obviously is very easy to do in the homes. It's fairly short inspection. So, we're taking all those steps. If there has been a big concern, I had one that the tenant was in their 80s, had health issues, things like that. We had the grandson did a FaceTime with me. And I know I've talked to a couple of the other inspectors that we've done that, if needed, if somebody's, and that way, they've got somebody that's in the household that I can say, push the test button or shake that or show me that, So we're able to really work with that. If somebody's quarantined, we've been able to call Perry and say, hey, these inspections are going to be a little late because they need a couple weeks to deal with this. So, we've been very cognizant of that. Obviously, the next thing that was listed is the financial impact of landlords. And I understand that $50 is still $50. At the same time, for a safety program, that's $50 every 2 years. So roughly $2 a month is not a whole lot for a safety program. And certainly as a business owner, I know that, that's wouldn't be my largest thing. But the thing that I want to make sure that we keep in mind is that it's a safety program. And while COVID and all those things have an impact, we're having an impact on the city and the residents of the city and the safety in the city. I had a little handout that hopefully they put in your box. It started out addressing this and then just kind of morphed into my feedback on the whole program. But one of the things I wanted to point out is in the last few days, I put in 9 smoke detectors. Today I had one house that had no working batteries in any. I put 5 batteries, a carbon monoxide detector, all of those. I found 2 houses that didn't have adequate heat. And a lot of it, I think people look at the landlords and how they're taking care of things. Part of what we do isn't as much the landlords. There's a lot of things that are not reported to a landlord, either for tenant fear. It could be that they just don't want to deal with the maintenance person. They don't, and a lot of tenants don't think about things like smoke detectors, stuff like that. So we're providing this service as an ongoing thing that helps the tenants. And a lot of times that's the thing that we're working with is the tenants more than just the landlords. And obviously a lot of our landlords do a really good job. However, we're here for the ones that don't necessarily, or the tenants that aren't paying attention. The ones that didn't have heat, both of those were able to get resolved quickly. Both of them hadn't been reported to the landlord. We were able to get a hold of the landlord, get it fixed, get things back on track for each tenants. So those are things that are very important now. While COVID is a concern, so are smoke detectors, carbon monoxide. I mean, safety is what we're doing. Not only that, but suspending it, because I could see that being a logistical nightmare trying to catch up. Perry, bless his heart, does a wonderful job of trying to keep caught up. But as those multiply, all of a sudden we're going to have all of those coming due. So I'm concerned about the safety things that we'd be missing, as well as just the logistics of being able to catch back up with that. So
You have 1 minute.
all right, super. I will leave it there because I think I put most of the things in writing. Feel free to reach out to me if anybody wants to discuss the program or the input. Feel free to do that. The last thing that I do want to, was that my time?
You can finish. Go ahead.
Okay, I was going to say the last thing that I do want to say is if you're looking over the input and the inspections as are put in the city system, a lot of times those are not an accurate representation because I know all of us carry smoke detectors, batteries, junction box covers. We're showing up to houses that would not pass. However, at the point that we put them in the system, they do pass because we're taking care of those types of things on site so that they do pass and the tenants are safe then. And getting it taken care of. So just because you're not seeing a lot of fails in the system doesn't mean that they were that way when we arrived at the house. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Our next speaker is J.D. Kerman, who requests to speak to the council regarding the Square Streetscape project and the moratorium on new apartment development approvals. Mr. Kerman.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. I trust you can hear me okay. Thank you very much. I want to begin by talking about the Square Streetscape project. I won't try to be more eloquent than Beth. However, this is also something that the EDC board has been supporting since its very inception. It's an important initiative, and I recently sat through a presentation with Councilman Perkins, and at the end of that presentation, the EDC board moved to throw its support behind this important project. I want to mention that this is not just a project that demonstrates a willingness to invest inside Independence and a willingness to invest in the infrastructure that these businesses rely on, but it also enhances the environment in such a way that makes people think, wow, you know, Independence has got real vitality. And we all want the story of Independence when we bring somebody here, whether it's a new prospect or a family member. We all want to start downtown. And this is a great step in that direction. Obviously, the coordination on a project like this in an older commercial area with all the subterranean issues that you have with stormwater and things of that nature, it's a big project, but it's an important one. And we're very proud to support it. Moving on to the apartment construction moratorium and the housing study, I'd like to take a little bit different approach on this and tell you that the EDC would welcome and support a housing study. This would be a tremendous tool for us, because when we have conversations with people about these sorts of ultra dense developments, right? When we're increasing the density or simply doing a project in an area that's already zoned for that kind of density, issues are going to arise, and reasonable people are going to disagree on those issues. So a housing study is a great place for me and my team to start, because it allows me to kind of mitigate some of these issues before they hit the front page of the paper or the city council chambers or something like that. So we would be very much in support of the housing study. You heard from someone far more qualified than me tonight regarding the moratorium. I would just ask that if you find that to be absolutely necessary, that you reach out to the EDC, and we're ready to assist. And I think many of the other stakeholders would feel the same way. Let's get that housing study done, and let's get it implemented so that we can make sure that the moratorium doesn't last any longer than it must absolutely have to. So that's a tough question that y'all are wrestling with, and I appreciate the fact that you're willing to take it on. Your support of the EDC is appreciated, and we are ready to stand by and help with that study at your beck and call. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Amanda Tilton, who requests to speak to the council regarding the Rental Ready program. Mrs. Tilton.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
I'm Amanda Tilton. I am the owner of Square One Homes. I'm a landlord in Independence. I'm also a registered nurse. I wanted to speak to you guys tonight about the Rental Ready program. I became aware of this issue because our business license is up for renewal, and we are not able to renew our license because although all of our properties have had an initial inspection, the inspections are not current, so we're not able to renew our license at this point. I don't feel comfortable sending an inspector or our maintenance people into our tenants' homes at this point due to COVID. I think we've pushed inspections back because we're in a state of emergency and we didn't feel like it was safe. Feel like that's evidenced that we don't feel like it's safe for us to meet in person tonight, that we're on a Teams meeting rather than sitting in person talking. I think I am concerned about my tenant's safety. I don't feel like I should be able to force an inspector or my maintenance people to go into their homes unwelcomed simply so that I can get my business license. And we're at a point right now where we're so close to everyone being able to have access to the vaccine. I'm fortunate enough to be able to be vaccinated because I am a nurse, but many of our tenants do not have that access right now. And I don't feel like it's my place to be able to tell them I have to have somebody come into your home. Or even if they're able to do a virtual inspection, which I think is a great thing, but if there's a small issue that comes up and then we have to send our maintenance man in, when it's an issue that they're not concerned about, that's not an imminent safety issue, I don't feel good about sending them in for that. And I appreciate the inspector that spoke earlier. And I want to be clear, like as a small business owner, I have no interest in hurting small businesses more than they've already been hurt in the last year. And I'm happy to come up with an alternative if there would be some kind of option where we could even pay for the inspection now, but have the inspection done after people have access to vaccines. I think that would be very reasonable. And I just want to be clear that my purpose in speaking is not at all in protest of the Rent Ready program or even in the inspections. It's simply a safety issue for both my tenants, all the tenants in Independence, and our maintenance staff. I'm happy to answer any questions or talk more in detail, but that's all I have for now.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. We do have another speaker who signed up late, who was not printed on our agenda. That is Jeff Rogers, who wishes to speak to the council regarding the square streetscape. Mr. Rogers.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Hi, I'm Jeff Rogers, a resident of Independence and acting executive director of the Square Association. I just wanted to bring to the council's attention the support that our partnerships of the Square Association have for this project. We're excited about the possibility. There's over 1,700 people who are employed within our historic downtown. We have over 100,000 tourists that annually visit our downtown, and we're expecting significant growth as the Truman Library comes back online this year. And that doesn't include the numbers of the fairs and festivals that occur in the downtown, the annual parades. We've become a placemaking space for summer outdoor movies and bicycle rides, uptown market activities. So not just tourists, but for our citizens alike. This is a way to care for our historic assets by framing them in the best possible way. We're already working with a local artist to add additional statuary that will help tell more of the story of President Truman from his first job as a youth to his military experience. So that additional art that's going to be added, it would really be nice to be able to place that in an area where we know that it looks in its best light, and we also know that the infrastructure there is set to be in place for decades to come. We do have funding mechanisms in place to help care for ongoing maintenance of public amenities in the district now. We've got the people in place to organize the continuing care of plantings, benches, artwork, trash collection, etc. So acting on this now will not only allow the share to reduce costs when combined with the Truman Connect project, but it also creates a consistent design and will help capitalize on the increased traffic from the renovated library and the new National Park Service location. This investment will yield increased tax collection through longer visits by tourists, renewed regional interests in our area, and increased investment in properties by the current building owners in our district. And it will demonstrate that we're not neglecting our role as caretakers of our history. The hometown of a president, the trailhead of westward expansion. Let's show our pride by investing in our past and our present, keeping our downtown a place where tourists want to spend time, where businesses locate, and where citizens will continue to gather for music, parades, entertainment, or just well-lit, safe strolls through the past and into the future. I appreciate your time this evening. Thanks.
Thank you very much. That concludes our speakers who have signed up in advance. Is there anyone present who would like to address the council this evening? Okay. Hearing none, we will now take up non-ordinance action item number 2. Madam City Clerk.
Bill number 2117, a resolution directing the city manager to review the city's rental-ready interior inspection program for compliance with current public health guidelines and make recommendations to temporarily suspend and/or modify this program as needed.
Okay, is there discussion on this item?
Madam Mayor,
Yes, Councilmember DeLucy.
I didn't know that we had a problem with the rental ready program. I think it will be a problem if we suspend the program. I think it would be a problem if Councilmember Huff votes on the program. He is a council member who owns rental properties. I don't think it's appropriate that he even brought this forward. It's a funny thing because I'm against the rental ready program. I think it's an invasion of privacy. But to just simply suspend it because one or two people don't want to have the inspection, when I was sold on this project and the citizens were sold on the project that it's a safety issue, I don't believe it's very good politics and it's not very good governance. I'm going to be voting against the resolution and I can't believe that.
Mayor Ware?
Yes, Councilmember Huff.
First of all, I'm not included in that at this point. Mine is not until June, as far as my rental house is number one. But if I'm confined and can't vote or bring anything up to this council, that I'm not part of. I mean, I'm in all kinds of businesses. That doesn't mean it's a conflict of interest. This thing also does not suspend it. What it says, if you read the language on there, it says for the city, it says asking the city manager to look at it and modify up to. It doesn't say it. That's what the city manager to give us some as far as this resolution. It says or spend up to the city manager to come back with something. We're not voting on to suspend this at this point.
Madam Mayor.
Yes, Councilmember Meyer.
Well, I think there's a great deal of confusion surrounding what the purpose of this is, and so let's just get down to brass tacks. I've had several property owners call me concerned about the liability issues of the city requiring inspectors to come into rental units during a time where COVID has created a lot of lockdowns and just a lot of insecurity surrounding individuals coming from the outside in. I have one property owner who had complied with the program, and as a result, shortly after the inspector was inside the home, the tenant came down with COVID and claimed that he got COVID from the inspector and was threatening to sue everyone involved. And that's concerning. I know that with the city, with things like the backflow preventer valve inspections or testing that we do, I didn't want anybody in my home during the summer months early on for fear of not knowing where they'd been, who they'd been around. It's just a liability issue that I think that the city should be concerned about, that property owners definitely need to be concerned about, and as well the inspectors need to be concerned about. So what we're just trying to do is simplify. We're not asking for suspension of the program. We're just asking that the interior inspection portion be suspended or modified, and allow the inspectors to do an exterior inspection for the windows and anything that's unsafe or looks like it needs to be addressed. If we receive complaints about interior issues, then of course we have to work through a process to get an inspector in. So it's more about protecting property owners who happen to be constituents, who have made investment in this city, who understand the liabilities associated with it. And I think it's a smart move. I think it's a good move during a state of emergency to try to help secure and protect people's investments, and without it exposing our community to any unnecessary risk. So that's why we put it together, and I'll be in support of
this. Did everybody mute their microphones if they're not speaking? We're getting a little bit of feedback. I appreciate Mrs. Tilton coming today, and I think that she made some very outstanding points from a variety of perspectives, and things that, frankly, I had not considered or had occurred to me. I absolutely love this program. I believe in this program. It was a long time coming and went through a number of variations to arrive at where we did in 2017. And I have lived with this program through all of those, from the first day that I was elected to the city council. This has been something that was being discussed, that was being promoted by Mayor Reimel. Was not able to get that to completion, but something that I know that he cared deeply about as well. And I'm proud that we were able to come up with a program for independence. And quite honestly, as controversial as it was, and it certainly was controversial, it's become a model for many cities around us who are seeking to do similar things. So I'm proud of what we've done. But I also know from being involved with the process for as long as I have that we discussed in great detail giving doing something for the landlords who continually proved that they could pass the inspections, who demonstrated that level of responsibility. That did not go into the original ordinance that created this program. We felt at the time in developing this that we should get this program up and running, see how it went, somewhat on a trial basis. But I think, at this point in time, after all of these years, I do think that it's time, COVID or no COVID, to review the program and like we do with many things, and see if it still is serving its purpose. One of the purposes was to identify the landlords in our city, and we identified hundreds of landlords who previously were unregistered for a variety of reasons, and that in itself was a huge accomplishment. I talk with Mr. Kopik, frequently about this program. He's made outstanding comments this evening that I think are very important about how our inspectors treat this. And they go in there, they just take their batteries and put them in the smoke alarms, help people be compliant, take care of a number of other issues when they can. They install smoke detectors, really go above and beyond. I think it's important for people to remember these are private businesses that we contract with. This isn't the city coming into your house. These are approved contractors for the city. I'm comfortable this evening supporting this to review it and do recommendations. I will not support a suspension or elimination of the program. I think it's very important for our city. It's something that has been incredibly successful for our city. That landlords, even though many who expressed initial discomfort with this program have come to embrace the program, and safety always has to be first and foremost. I'm impressed that Mr. Kopik, mentioned that he's been able to do some FaceTime inspections. I think there's some innovation there that, given the circumstances. So I'm happy to support this item to ask the city manager to review this and see if there's some things that we need to do in light of the pandemic, which we hope is, certainly improving and hopefully getting us back to some semblance of normal. But I want to be clear with everybody in the community. I will do everything to preserve this program because I feel that it's that important and has been that successful. Are there any other comments? Yes, Councilman Hobart.
I just wanted to say that I really appreciated Mike Kopik putting in the time and effort not only to speak to us, but to provide the detailed document that he drafted and put in our boxes. The stories of the two families that your program helped get heat when they were too afraid or too unknowing to tell their landlords was particularly moving. And having worked in law for so long, I've been on both sides of evictions before, and I just know that there are a lot of people out there that rent that don't have a lot of money and don't have a lot of knowledge about how how it works between a tenant and landlord. So I additionally, I don't know why, if a program's been so successful, we need to all of a sudden review it. I'm in favor of keeping it as is, and I'll be voting against this resolution.
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
John,
Oh, I'm sorry.
can you see me now?
Yes.
So I'm like you, I'm in favor to review and modify where need be, but not in favor of suspending or replacing this program with something completely different or eliminating the program. So I'll vote yes to look and review and have discussions when this is brought back to the council, but not in favor of suspending this at all.
Okay, is there any further discussion?
Madam Mayor.
Yes, Councilman Huff.
Yes, Mr. City Manager, do we have a attorney here this evening?
Yes, sir. I know that Mitch Langsford is on, and I believe Shannon Marcano, the city attorney, is also with us.
I would like to ask him if it's a conflict of interest for me to vote on this.
Shannon, could you weigh in on that?
Yes, I don't feel like I have a complete amount of information to be able to talk about the program itself, but if the resolution is just directing the review of the program by the city manager, it sounds to me like everybody on the council can vote on it. I think should there be a substantive resolution that affects the operation of the program, that might be a different matter. But again, additional information would be needed before we could make a definitive determination on that.
I was just wondering, because my livelihood, that's part of my livelihood, and I guess that there's a couple of attorneys that's on this council that shouldn't be practicing law in the city of Independence, because that's probably a conflict of interest for them. This is my livelihood, and I should have that. I've had them properties a long, long time. They've been practicing a long time. I hope they don't get in front of our independence judges, because that'd be a conflict of interest if we're going to stretch it that far. But that's fine. That's all I have to say.
Okay, are there any other comments? Hearing none, Madam City Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilmembers Huff,
Definitely yes.
Perkins,
Yes.
Stewart,
Yes.
Lucy,
No.
Steinmeier,
Yes.
Hobart,
No.
Mayor Weir.
Yes. Item number 2.
Multifamily units. Back in June, I do recall, I believe it was Councilmember DeLucci who, upon approval of the last multifamily unit, she indicated that we needed to do this one, and this was it for a while. Now, we don't know how long a while is, but I was in a total agreement with her. I think that our efforts should be directed more towards single-family dwellings and the development of new developments, new homes, and be attractive to folks and families that want to come in and establish themselves. So all I would like to do is have a pause and have some direction based on information. Information helps us get to a place of making good decisions. I've talked with Councilmember Perkins and Huff and had conversations with you, Madam Mayor, regarding what we think we can do to keep the focus on, which is to get a good plan to move our city forward in the long term for community development. And we felt like if we modified this or amended the motion, that possibly it would be more palatable. So can I make a motion to amend, or do we want to have more discussion first, Madam Mayor?
You may make your motion to amend.
Okay. I'd like to move to exclude all family development projects currently scheduled for consideration by any city board or commission of or the city council, including any applications currently pending, referral to any city board or commission or the city council, and to direct the city manager to have our city management analysts to develop a comprehensive housing study to be brought back to the council by March 31st, 2021, if possible.
So, Councilman Steinmeier, let me
Yes.
jump in just a moment on your motion.
Yes.
The city manager does not direct the management analyst. The council directs us.
Okay.
Analyst. So if we would like to bring that forward to the management analyst, we submit that to the audit committee, and then they will handle that. So I would just make that, I would eliminate that from your motion.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification.
So there is a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. There discussion on the motion?
Madam Mayor,
Yes, Councilmember DeLucy.
so what we're voting on is a future moratorium. Anything that's not already in the pipeline is excluded. Is that the motion now?
My understanding, Councilman Steinmeier, your motion is anything that is currently underway would not be interrupted, that we would proceed immediately with a housing study. How do you treat then the moratorium? Would that be for anybody who is not, that we would not consider any new projects until the completion of the housing study?
I would say that it would be that, it could be up to a period of time until we have the housing study in front of us, and then we can revisit the moratorium once we have information to make a good informed decision on what to do next.
And Madam Mayor, then I am going to speak to this. In the past 5 years, we've approved two things, 2 apartment complexes. I don't know what is in the future because I don't have a crystal ball, but I don't want to shut anybody down if they want to come to Independence with a really great project. I don't want them to hear, well, they're not even going to look at your project, go away. And that's what a moratorium does. I don't know who would do the housing study. I don't know where the money would come from for the housing study. I don't know how long it would take to do a housing study, and I don't exactly know the scope of the housing study. I personally think we have an awful lot of apartments in Independence. I believe it approaches 40%. So it's not that I don't have a lot of compassion for where Mr. Steinmeier is going. I just think we are painting with too broad a brush to tell unknown people don't bother to come. Now, I absolutely didn't like the original motion where we were shutting somebody down after they have already entered the pipeline and spent hundreds of thousands of dollars. I don't know that we need a moratorium to do a housing study. We can do a housing study without a moratorium. And therefore, I'll be voting against this motion in both ways it's written.
Well, Madam Mayor.
I'm sorry. Who? Councilman Hobart?
I just wanted to add that, Madam Mayor, you and I both had some initial discussions on a project that would be, I think we both agreed would be a really great addition to for the 4th District, to use some vacant property and do some affordable senior housing, and but it's technically multifamily.
We have to do the research, and we need to do it from many different perspectives. Mr. City Manager, you had said in the resolution that we have over 9,900 multifamily units currently in Independence. Is that correct?
Yeah, I pulled that. That number is probably a little dated. I got that from U.S. Census Bureau, most recent report, which was the 2018 estimate, but there's probably a decent amount of validity to that. Probably pretty close number.
And then we have another 520 getting ready to come online with the new construction.
Yes, sir.
So that's going to put us over 10,000 multifamily units.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I don't know if anybody else looked at the project laid out by Case and Associates, but if you look at what they're asking for in terms of rent and the qualification of 3 to 5 times the income to support those rents to qualify, you will find that we're going to have a lot of empty units based on those qualifications. We have to ask ourselves, what is going to attract the folks that have this type of income levels to come into our community and want to be here? We need to look at this from the standpoint of not just community development, but capital investments. We need to look at it, and I would think every one of us would be concerned about our real estate values in our city and you know, protecting those assets. So there's a lot that we need to know. If you want data, then we need a study, and that's what we're lacking. We're just approving things, and we approved the last project, and I have no problem reminding Councilmember DeLucci that she said we need to put this needs to be the last one for a while. That we just needed to kind of put a pause on this, and I agree. And the data should have been, we probably should have been asking for the study back then, but it didn't happen with the old council. So this is all I'm asking for. Well, let's go ahead and let it pass through. If you don't like the time frame, that's fine. Get the study. Let's go through it. Let's have a study session. Let's get a comprehensive plan to move this city forward that's attractive at many different levels, and let's grow our city the right way. That's all.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, Councilmember DeLucci.
I just want to say, I spoke with Mr. Moore a couple days ago, and I told him, please do not think, because I don't support this resolution, that I support your project. I think we have an awful lot of apartments in Independence. What we're voting on tonight is a moratorium. It is a stop sign. It is a do not come into Independence, anybody. Don't look at us anymore. That's what I'm opposed to. I want to have a housing study. I've wanted it for a couple of years, but we don't need to do a moratorium to have a housing study. Thank you.
Madam Mayor.
So oh yes, Councilman Huff.
I just wanted to go over that. You've been asking for a housing study, and I think Councilman DeLucci voted no, and a few others around here. I know that you've been after it for quite a few years. We've heard JD tonight say this is very, very important. Seems like we have to go on, so it'll push it a little quicker.
I'm struggling with this one, to be quite honest with you. As Councilman Huff pointed out, I've been pushing for a housing study for a number of years since we completed the comprehensive development plan. We did not include housing in that particular plan, and it became glaringly obvious that we needed a housing study. So I, would ask for that to be included in the budget, and it would always be removed. So I'm glad that there is now interest and support for proceeding with the study. When I look around our city and other cities, absent a plan, you end up getting a lot of what you may not want. And, if it's zoned a certain way and they're not seeking incentives, things can, just show up that we don't have any say over. And without a study and a policy and a plan, then we don't have any way to prevent the type of growth and development that I say we, I mean the community. I don't mean the city council, that the community envisions. They create a great vision with the comprehensive development plan, and we need to create that same vision for the housing strategy. And just tearing stuff down without a plan of what to put up in its place isn't a strategy. So I support the intent of it. I certainly am pleased, to support the motion that would exclude anybody who is currently in any form of a process. As Councilman Hobart pointed out, he and I are working with a developer who has purchased property in the 4th district, and they're seeking tax credits from the state. They didn't receive them on their first application, but they intend to go back. And I don't want to halt their progress because that would be a great addition to this neighborhood. I'm not sure that the management analyst has the capability with resources that we have to do the type of housing study that we need. I think that's a great place to start to help us start getting our arms around it. When we did the comp plan, it was a full year of work by our community development department and our internal departments, and then probably another almost year of community engagement. I mean, that's a bigger thing than what we're talking about. So I'm comfortable with certainly moving the housing study to the forefront and starting to understand what that would entail, the scope, the cost, the participation from organizations like the EDC and the chamber and the community. I don't like the word moratorium. It doesn't sound good on the ears of developers who are looking to do work in our community. But I think that if we could say, but I also understand that the plan could take some time and some development that this community doesn't desire could occur during that time is concerning. As you know, several people have pointed out, getting your first project is hard, and after that, sometimes they just start coming. And you know, if we don't have a mechanism to be able to review and look at those, I think that is concerning. So I understand the intent. What I might suggest is that we add to this bill that the city council will, until the time where we have a housing study in place, that we will review all permits that are pulled for residential development. And that would allow us some additional control that we don't currently have, to look at those and if need be, to see if they fit with our vision, with our strategic plan, and that we would have the ability to deny those permits in instances where we would have concern about the type of development and the location of that development. So I would make that motion that we would, in lieu of a moratorium, that we would give the council additional oversight over all residential permits. So is there no second for that, or are you thinking?
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
I'm thinking before movement is made on your motion, is it possible to have clarification for section 1 of the resolution from the city manager? Would that be appropriate at this time?
Yes.
So under section 1, the city manager is directed to implement a temporary moratorium of up to 1 year on approval of any new apartment permit applications unless approved by the council. So is that one of the safeguards that we will have in this that would allow the council to review if there's any outstanding project that may come forward within this 12-month period or before the housing study is done? I'm thinking, throwing it out there, this isn't necessarily happening, but if there's a project over in Inglewood that says there's a mixed use development over there, would this hinder any type of mixed use development unless it was approved by the council to go forward?
You know, council member, I think that's how it could be read, but you could certainly amend this with the vernacular that the mayor just mentioned, to just put that extra additional layer of caution in there so that, you know, how that is interpreted is very clear to everyone. I don't think you could err too far on putting too much language on here just to be certain of the outcome you're getting.
Okay. I'll second the motion on the table.
Mr. City Manager,
Yes.
does any other city in Eastern Jackson County have a moratorium or this extra step where a city council has to approve a permit?
Off the top of my head, I'm not aware of any cities in Eastern Jack that are doing that right now, Councilwoman. I know that the cities in Johnson County are slowing things down a little bit right now while they do a larger housing studies, but I don't know the ins and outs of the level of formality and approval over there.
How many apartment permits have we received in the past year?
I would double check with Tom Scannell, who I know is on the call, but I believe that is 0, other than the ones that were applied for as part of the Ainsley apartment project.
Thank you.
That is relevant, and I appreciate you saying that. Do you know, Mr. City Manager, of other cities that have housing, have conducted housing studies and are creating housing policy?
We're on the wrong end of this one. The city after city has done a housing study of some sort.
So that's relevant too. And as I say, you know, 2 years ago, we didn't have any of this development happening. Now we have 3 developments, 2 that are under construction, 1 that's in the process. We have conversations, I mean, informal, but, you know, Councilman Hobart and I had a, you know, the one in the 4th district. There's interest in housing in Englewood and mixed use in Englewood. We have a master development plan for Rockwood that would include some multifamily housing. We have spoken to several developers who are interested in potentially looking at developments on the square. So just because there isn't applications doesn't mean there's not interest or conversation happening. Or, I mean, we were talking about potentially some things on Nolan Road. So there's a lot in the pipeline, so to speak, that hasn't filed any paperwork with the city, but that doesn't mean they're not here looking. So I think we need I would be comfortable giving ourselves temporarily a little bit more authority to look at these because we don't have a housing study, and saying, you know, we're going to look at these permits and we can choose to take action on them or choose not to take action on them. But that is much more palatable to me, and I think to the development committee, than, as you say, council member, putting up a stop sign and saying we're not going to let anybody in until we complete this process, which could take some time. I mean, understood. And so I think this is a nice compromise, is say we're going to give ourselves a little bit more oversight so we have a clear understanding about who's looking, who's interested. And then, you know, when we complete this long overdue housing study, we will no longer require us to have that type of oversight.
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
By the time that we looked at this amended on Councilman Steinmeier's, anyone in the pipeline would go ahead and have access and run their thing there. And now you're wanting to do away with this moratorium. You know, we just might take the thing off the table and say one housing study and vote on that if that's what everybody wants. This was to try to get that to roll here, but just getting cut up so bad. I mean, that's exactly what Councilman Steinmeier's after, is a housing study just like you. But in order to get this thing running, it's been 2 years. So we're going to wait 2 more years to see it happen. Unless we do something that counters that, like this, then we know that there's going to be some action.
So we have two motions on the table. And item 21717. So, Madam City Clerk, I believe we need to vote on the motion to eliminate the moratorium in lieu of giving the council oversight over the permitting process first. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. And then we also need to go ahead and read the bill. So if it's okay with you, I'll read the bill and then we can do a vote on the second amendment. So this is for bill number 21-717, a resolution directing the city manager to implement a temporary moratorium on all new apartment development approvals within the city of Independence. So this vote will be the second amendment, which is for the council to review all permits in lieu of the moratorium. Councilmembers Huff?
No.
Perkins?
No.
Stewart?
No.
DeLucy?
No.
Steinmeier?
No.
Hobart?
No.
Mayor Weir?
No. Okay. Next motion.
The next motion is the motion made by Councilmember Steinmeier, and this is amending it to exclude anything that's already in process and to move forward with the housing study.
And if I have a question, how long is this moratorium going to last?
How long do we think that the study will take to put together, Mr. City?
We have no idea. That's the problem. We don't know who's going to do it. We don't know the cost. We don't know the scope. And we're looking at doing a moratorium. Thank you.
I understand. Well, I understand your frustration. I too share your frustration because it would have been cheaper and we'd have been farther along had we done it back in June. So I'd say let's just get it done.
This is a moratorium on apartment complexes. This is not a request for a housing study.
Madam Mayor.
Yes, Councilmember Huff.
Councilman DeLucci, I guess just like everything else changes around here, if Councilman Hobart or Councilman Perkins comes up with something and they bring it forth, I'm sure that we can change the rules like we do all the time to approve or disapprove that project. I don't see that a moratorium is going to stop that.
It's going to stop applications. It's going to stop people from looking at independence. That's the problem. A blanket, unlimited moratorium is not going to help our citizens.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, Councilman.
This is specifically speaking to multifamily units. You want to grow your city? Let's look at attracting single-family development. Single-family development homes. We don't have much going on in this city. In fact, Mr. City Manager, the last count that you could see for permits pulled for single-family residents in Independence, how many do we have?
Less than 10.
Less than 10. I'm telling you, from my perspective, a moratorium on something that is going to be in the tens of thousands versus finding out where our best efforts and resources should go towards makes the smarter move to me. So we haven't had any up until recently anyway for the last year. So I understand your concern. The moratorium, we can put I don't care if you want to put 6 months on it. I don't care if we want to revisit it in every quarter. I don't care. I want to do it the right way. I wish it had been done and initiated back in June, but here we are in February and we're still talking about it. It's time to act.
So I would make a motion to review it quarterly.
The right way to do this is to listen to the experts.
I'm sorry.
Like Jake.
Hobart, I made a motion. My motion is to review it quarterly.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
I guess I have another question. I don't know what an apartment is. this prevents all apartment permits. An apartment, if I have a home that I can rent out apartments in, is that going to prevent me from doing that? Or is it just for 200 unit apartments?
Madam Mayor, I'm going to ask Mr. Scannell to weigh in here just to give you guys a quick rundown of the different classifications we have. Tom, are you there?
I was on mute. I'm sorry about that.
There you go.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. In the UDO, we have definitions of single family, two family, three family, and then from there it goes to multi-family. So I would rely on the UDO and their definitions for the definition of multifamily.
Mr. Scannell, this talks about apartments. It doesn't talk about multifamily. Does the UDO have anything about apartments?
Let me look through the UDO real quick. Yes, it does. The UDO does have a definition of apartment.
Can you read that to us, please?
Yes. An apartment is defined as a building containing 3 or more dwelling units that share common walls and/or common floors or ceilings. Apartment/condo buildings are typically served by 1 or more common building entrances.
Councilman DeLucci, your speaker is not on.
Thank you, Mr. Huff. So is a fourplex an apartment?
Typically, the fourplexes that we see that are built within the KC Metro, they have individual entrances and not a common building entrance. So I would say no, that a fourplex is not an apartment.
Unless it has one building entrance. But if I wanted to have 2 entrances, it's not an apartment.
Within the definition, it says it can have 1 or more common building entrances. So if the fourplex had 2 shared entrances, then that would meet the definition of apartment.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Mr. Hobart. Did you have something you wanted to say?
Probably better than I took a break anyway, so I apologize for cutting in on you, Madam Mayor. This is an attempt to solve a problem that doesn't exist. And the city of Independence already has a black eye with commercial and industrial developers because of what happened with Van Trust. All this does is make us look small-minded and petty to any legit developer that would come try to talk to J.D. Kerman and make a deal or talk about coming to Independence. You know, we've got enough problems without shooting ourselves in the foot left and right. So this literally solves nothing. And I'll be voting against it.
So there's a motion on the floor to review the moratorium quarterly. Is there any discussion on the motion? Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Huff,
Yes.
Perkins,
Yes.
Stewart,
Yes.
DeLucy,
No.
Steinmeier,
Yes.
Hobart,
No.
Mayor Weir.
Yes, motion passes. There's a motion on the floor to remove all pending projects and to initiate a housing study. Is there any discussion on the motion? Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
I think there might have been a question here.
Excuse me?
I think there might have been a question. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Is this a motion to exclude all pending projects?
Yes,
Okay.
and to initiate, to give direction, for this council to give direction on initiating a housing study. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Huff,
Yes.
Perkins,
Yes.
Stewart,
Yes.
DeLucy,
Yes.
Steinmeier,
Yes.
Hobart,
Yes.
Mayor Weir.
Yes. Motion passes. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll on 21717 as amended.
Councilmembers Huff,
Yes.
Perkins,
Yes.
Stewart,
Yes.
DeLucy,
No.
Steinmeier,
Yes.
Hobart,
No.
Mayor Weir.
Yes, item passes. Now, back to the consent agenda. Mayor Pro Tem.
Madam Mayor, I move to approve the reports and recommendations of the city manager.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Councilmember Perkins, I know you wanted to pull item 1 and 2.
Correct.
Okay. Are there any other items that a council member wishes to pull for separate consideration? Okay, would you please call the roll on the consent agenda, items 1 and 2?
Councilmembers Huff, Perkins,
Yes.
Stewart,
Yes.
DeLucy,
Yes.
Steinmeier,
Yes.
Hobart,
Yes.
Mayor Weir.
Yes. Okay, Councilmember Perkins, item number 1.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just with continuity, I'm going to speak to number 1 and number 2. Of course, we will vote on them separately, mainly because the Trimmer Connected has a big impact on the Independence Square design and the project moving there. Before I begin, I want to ask the city clerk to reflect that Habitat for Humanity has also endorsed the program, the Independence Square Streetscape project, please. With that, I'm excited. Sorry.
We can include that in the minutes.
Okay. Thank you, Madam City Clerk. So I'm excited to have these 2 projects before the council for consideration. The thought of redeveloping the square has been discussed for many years, as our speakers have said. Recently, the council adopted the downtown redevelopment plan October 15th of 2018, and this plan has been shepherded by the Independence on a Roll working group, which includes myself, Councilman Huff, Councilman Steinmeier, Lori Dean Wiley, Chamber of Commerce representative, and Dan O'Neill, the EDC representative. We've taken the downtown redevelopment plan and have community engagements with the Independence Square Association, with our community partners, for the whole purpose of maximizing the historical attractiveness and of the heart of the city and to help spur economic development. This is a plan that can work in conjunction with Truman Library and its $30 million renovation, and all the good things that are taking place around the square and around Independence. The Truman Connected is the plan that takes Truman Library to the Truman Sports Complex. This will be the first phase. This plan is to connect those 2 points. The steering committee for this plan first met in July of 2019. We'd had community engagements at the Inglewood Third Friday Art Walk, with the Uptown Market at City Hall. We've talked to the community about the service need in the area. The whole idea is to have connectivity from our historic sites to our tourism sites to the emerging and blooming Inglewood Arts District. These 2 projects are listed here as 1 and 2. They're separate, but the city staff and Independence on the Roll looked and thought the wisdom of having one design firm look at these things, since they will be working on the Independence Square to help with continuity, to help with financing, and to help reduce risk of communication that could be jumbled between City Hall and stakeholders. So having this one design firm moving forward with this is highly important. And this is a big step moving Independence in the right direction and bringing some redevelopment back into our downtown. So with that, Madam Mayor, I will move for approval of item number 1.
Madam Mayor.
We need a second for discussion.
Second.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Yes, I would like to ask the city manager questions on these. I know that Councilman Perkins has been reactive in this, working on this for a long time. My only question I have is the financing of this. My understanding, talking to you, that this is at no cost, this preliminary one with grants and money out there that's donated, and this is at no cost to the citizens of the city at this point until we move to step 2. Is that correct?
Yeah, Councilmember, it's correct, and I want to be very direct on this. Initially, the item you're approving tonight is using street sales tax funds to front the cost of the design work. I want to link this up with the Truman Connect for just a minute to help make sense of this to you. The idea here is that because a large portion of that Truman Connect trail will run through the square, it made sense if we were going to do both projects to use one architect. So you have one person who's looking for economies of scale, minimizing costs, et cetera. The grant dollars that will be coming to support this project come in later down the road. We've been awarded them, but they just have not been remitted yet. So funding cycles work where you get advance notice, several years notice. When those dollars come back in, they'll be used to reimburse and reappropriate to the dollars you're appropriating tonight, to where it comes out in the wash and the citizens aren't paying for this design cost. If in a year from now the council wants to proceed with construction, that would be a different story. That would require local city investment. But for this portion of it, ultimately the answer is no to you.
Thank you for clarifying.
Is there further discussion on the motion?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Yes.
I want to say that I've been a member of the Chamber of Commerce for over 30 years, and I think it's a great organization. I've never belonged to the EDC, but I think that's a great organization. I've practiced law in the square since 1980. I'm a member of the Square Association, but I also represent 117,000 people in 78 square miles. I don't just represent the 1,700 that Mr. Rogers talked about on the 6 square blocks of the square. This is the first step of a $3.224 million project. This $395,000 is coming from the street sales tax. That street sales tax just a few years ago was extended to become perpetual. It also was expanded, and it can now cover sidewalks, curbs, and gutters. To date, none of that money has been spent on sidewalk, curbs, or gutters. I appreciate the fact that we're going to be applying to be reimbursed for the $395,000 in design work for the square streetscapes, but we haven't been approved for that reimbursement yet. We borrowed $15 million to repair our bridges, to fix our streets, to do our sidewalks, to do our gutters. And then we started with the 24 highway project. Phase 1 is $2.5 million more than what we anticipated. Phase 2 is $2.5 million more than what we anticipated. Right now, we're fighting with MoDOT because we're in phase 1. We don't have that extra money. We simply do not have it. And when you talk about spending only $395,000, don't worry, it'll be reimbursed. That's not, number one, guaranteed. And number two, we don't have $395,000 for design work for the square. And I love the square. And I love all the organization I've just talked about. We're going to use $854,000 of the community development block grants, which is half of the funding of that fund for 3 years. And by taking half that money, we are not doing bus routes. We're not doing any more training for jobs. We're not giving that money to the Salvation Army, to the food pantry, to Habitat for Humanity, or to Hillcrest. That's what this design work is going to cost. I don't know where the other money is coming from. I found out of the $3.224 million, $1.3 million more is earmarked from our street sales tax. Well, that still leaves me over $1 million, not knowing how we're going to pay for the streetscape. I want to help the square, but we have a lot more people. We have a lot more bridges. Look at our bridges. We need help on our bridges. We need help on our streets. We need help on our intersections. We cannot start boiling the frog with $395,000. And that's what we're going to hear. Oh, it's not the $3 million, Karen. Don't worry about it. It's only 300. And we're going to look at the design work and it's going to be reimbursed. Yeah, right. That's not going to happen. It's a mistake. And I'm sorry, I think our speakers were very elegant and they feel as strongly as I do, but I think it's a big mistake and it's a shortage to the rest of our citizens. We spent $2 million, $3 million on the farmer's market. We gave all that land away for the townhouses. We have done enough for the square right now. Thank you.
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
So I just want to say I do appreciate all the hard work that Councilmember Perkins and the Honor Roll Committee has put into this. And I do agree that if it does pass, it probably will be a good project. However, I actually agree with Councilmember DeLucy on this. I just think, you know, are we going to be reimbursed? Or are we not going to be reimbursed? I don't really know. It's just a lot of money to take a chance with. And I will be voting no on this as well.
Any further discussion?
Madam Mayor, if I may,
Yes.
just to remind the council and those, the whole idea of this downtown redevelopment committee and the on the roll committee that I chair now is we took 17 different plans that were sitting on the shelf doing nothing, collecting dust, and now we have a plan that was voted on by this council so we can start looking at the different needs of the city, starting with the Independence Square, going into Inglewood, moving into Fairmont. There's a lot of different areas that are moving, some in a different pace than others. The Independence Square is now in the spot to where we are able to do the investment to make our city grow, to bring in tourism, to make the traffic and the tourism stay longer in this town, that we can piggyback off the stuff that the Truman Library is doing here. And also to remind that Councilwoman DeLucy also voted in favor of this downtown redevelopment plan, which has been our Bible, if you will, to keep this city moving forward. So this is the reason why that we've brought this forward. It's a community need, has been in our discussion points, has been in every discussion points that I've been into. So we're bringing this forward for consideration. So I'll be voting for it, and I appreciate the support of the council.
Any further discussion?
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I want to say that I have heard from several of the constituents here in the 3rd district, mixed review. I'll just say what they said to me, which is we've spent a lot of money in the square in the past. Right now, people question what we're doing on the square. I want the square to succeed, and I think all of us do. And that's why I'm reminded of the old saying, to whom much is given, much is required. I want to see our square opened up. I want to see those businesses thriving. I don't want it to be left to just a handful of businesses. I'm going to vote yes, because I'm curious to see how we're going to move forward. But I really want to see the businesses on the square and the square to become a vital part of our community, not just from the historical perspective, but from investment, the businesses open, and people feeling like there's a reason to go there right now. And I'm hoping that this will help spur some conversation and have people come up, but we need participation from all the businesses in that business community up on the square to do their part in this project. So, but with that, I'm going to vote yes for it.
Further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Huff,
Yes.
Perkins,
Yes.
Stewart, Councilmember Stewart,
I'm sorry, no.
DeLucy,
No.
Steinmeier,
Yes.
Hobart,
No.
Mayor Ware.
Yes. Item number 1 passes. Councilmember Perkins, item number 2.
Madam Mayor, I'll just move for approval of item number 2.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion?
I just want to make it clear, Madam Mayor, to the citizens of Independence, that only $230,000 total city money is going into this project. That's it. There's no more city money going into it. Thank you.
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Huff,
Yes.
Perkins,
Yes.
Stewart,
No.
DeLucy,
Yes.
Steinmeier,
Yes.
Hobart,
Yes.
Mayor Ware.
Yes. Item number 2 passes. Before we get into the rest of our agenda, we need to take a 5-minute recess. So we will resume at 7:45. and proceed with our public hearings. The first is a public hearing for the amendment to the Unified Development Ordinance, Chapter 14 of the Independent City Code relating to hauling trailers. This is a full public hearing. Mr. Scannell.
I'll be doing this one for Tom.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
No problem. Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. My name is Rick.
Are you doing all, Rick, so I know to call on you? Okay.
Yeah. My name is Rick Arroyo, Assistant Community Development Director here at the city. This ordinance amendment was considered by Planning Commission on January 12th. The Planning Commission recommended it in favor of this amendment. What this does is clarifies language about how we measure hauling trailers, and that it does now clarify that it includes open and closed trailers as well. I have no new information to add.
Okay. This is a full public hearing. Is there anyone present who wishes to speak in favor of this amendment? Just a moment. I just want to make sure everybody was back in the meeting. Is there anybody wishing to speak in opposition? Are there any comments or questions from the council on the public hearing? Hearing none, the public hearing is closed. Madam City Clerk.
Bill number 21-003, an ordinance amending the Unified Development Ordinance, Chapter 14 of the Independent City Code relating to hauling trailers. Second and final reading.
Is there any discussion on this bill?
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I'm still going to go with this. When I read this thing, really confused when you buy a trailer. It's based on the box size, not counting the ton. But I got no problem with it. We don't need these trailers parked around everywhere anyway. I just found it really strange that we buy trailers by, 10 by 12. It doesn't count the ton. It's the box size or the cargo space. But other than that, that's all I had.
Okay, is there any other comments or questions from the council on this bill? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Huff.
Yes.
Perkins.
Yes.
Stewart.
Yes.
Lucy.
Yes.
Steinmeier.
Yes.
Hobart.
Yes.
Mayor Weir.
Yes. Ordinance passes. Our next public hearing is for the amendment to the Unified Development Ordinance, Chapter 14 of the Independent City Code relating to final plat recordation. This is a full public hearing. Is there anyone, Mr. Arroyo, we'll let you go ahead and present this.
Thank you again. This ordinance amendment was considered again on Planning Commission on January 12th. The Planning Commission did recommend in favor of this amendment. What this one does is basically allows that final development plats be recorded up to a year. Currently, the code calls for 6 months before they expire, and we just felt that this would better align better align with other development submittals that expire after a year and give more flexibility to the applicant. With that, I have no further information.
Okay, thank you very much. This is a full public hearing. Is there anyone present wishing to speak in favor of this amendment? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Are there any comments or questions from the council on the public hearing? Okay, the public hearing is closed. Madam City Clerk.
Bill number 21-004, an ordinance amending the Unified Development Ordinance, Chapter 14 of the Independent City Code pertaining to final plat. Second and final reading.
Is there any comments or questions on this bill? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Huff.
Yes.
Perkins.
Yes.
Stewart.
Yes.
Lucy.
Yes.
Steinmeier.
Yes.
Hobart.
Yes.
Mayor Weir.
Yes. Ordinance passes. This public hearing is for the application by David Miller requesting rezoning from C1 neighborhood commercial to R12 two-family residential for the property located at 19401 East US 24 Highway. This is new information only. Mr. Arroyo.
So thank you, Mayor. This is, again, a rezoning application that was considered by Planning Commission on January 12th. Planning Commission recommended not in favor of this rezoning, and I have no new information to report.
Okay. Is there any comments or questions from the council on the public hearing?
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I just want to state that I'm going to follow the Planning Commission's recommendation on this and vote no on this. That's
Okay.
it.
Okay. The public hearing is closed. Madam City Clerk.
Bill number 21-005, an ordinance approving a rezoning from District C1 neighborhood commercial to District R12 two-family residential. 9401 East US 24 Highway in Independence, Missouri. Second and final reading.
Is there any discussion on this bill? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Huff,
No.
Perkins,
No.
Stewart,
No.
DeLucy,
No.
Steinmeier,
No.
Hobart,
No.
Mayor Weir.
No. Ordinance fails. This takes us to non-ordinance action item number 1. Madam City Clerk.
Bill number 21-714, a resolution directing the city manager to limit consideration of generation machinery solutions to new machinery or certified remanufactured machinery that meet certain criteria when evaluating solutions for replacement of combustion turbines.
Is there discussion on this bill?
Madam Mayor,
Yes, Councilmember DeLucci.
I do not understand why we're telling an expert how to do his job, and that's how I look at this resolution. I think that Mr. Nail and our IPL people would not bring us a bad product. And I don't think I need to tell him what exactly that is. He knows much better than me. So I don't understand why we would ever tell him and micromanage his job from this level. It just doesn't make sense. So I'm going to vote no on this non-ordinance action item.
Councilman Huff?
Yes, Madam Mayor, thank you. I've been talking about this for years, even before I was elected. When I worked for the City of Power and Light for 35 years, it's always been on my list. And now more so as a council member. This is a very serious and should be council's #1 priority to get this thing running. You've seen as these power plants, which previous council told me I didn't know what I was talking about, that these coal fires wouldn't affect this. And in turn it has. The more coal power plants that are shut down does affect us. And we've seen it with our own eyes in the last couple of days. My biggest deal with this resolution, #1, is that, we need to make sure that everyone understands peak and base load. And I know a few council people are having a hard time. They don't understand what the difference is. But basically, we need a base unit, something that holds up, something that can generate. This is very, very important. We went down this green energy thing for years, brought to us, and green energy is not reliable. We've seen that in Texas. It was not a matter of if this was going to happen, it was when it was going to happen. My biggest concern here, and I've listed quite a few things on this, is that, we have a lot of upset people out there on this thing with this blackout and everything. And it's due to some of the questions were, well, is this because we shut down Blue Valley? And some of the responses was, well, yeah, I don't know. Well, yes, it is a direct response. We went in with this Onetta, which I was very much against. I would think it was the only council member there prior to this council that voted against this. I said, you're buying an insurance policy, it doesn't pay, it's blue sky. And what I would like to know is, where's our 50 megawatts that we're paying for at $2 million a year that we could have used to keep our city in with power? You know, I've always talked about the energy issue, the dogwood. If we'd have bought 50 megs of dogwood, guess what? We would have had power in this city. But my biggest concern is that we make this a #1 priority. We need to make sure that we're buying nothing but the best. Councilman DeLucci, this city is very subject and has in the past always go with low bid and not the best. And that is why this is on there. I want to make sure that we get nothing but the best equipment. If we're going to do this investment, we need to do this. This should have been done years ago. Most power people are 25 years ahead. We're 25 years behind. If this thing would have been in operation when it was brought to the council 3 years ago, we would have made in excess power, if we had been generating, approximately $6.5 million a day. 15 days of this, we already paid for this power plant. Everybody's worried about $100 million or whatever the number is. It's immaterial. When you're sitting in the cold with no lights, I don't care what it costs. There's all kinds of funding out there. That would have paid basically half of this thing right off the get-go just in 15 days. You know, my biggest deal, other than that, is these special interest groups that we have out here. I've seen it through the years. They convinced the city council that, all right, let's go. We need solar. We need wind. We need Onetta. We need this capacity. All these three things have failed. Then we hear, oh, you can't do rate reductions. You can't give credit back to ratepayers. The rates are going to increase 20-something%. Well, you know, I'm really wondering what the credentials of these people are that's giving all the city advice. I don't know that any of them have any. It's just their opinion. I'm not an expert. I was there 35 years, but the special interest group keeps continuing to pour information to the city, and the city is accepting them as experts, and they are not experts. They are far from experts. You know, I just think that in the last few days, and our citizens are going to pay a lot of money for this little deal. And of course, they're upset also. But, you know, I want to impress on this council how serious this is. This is nothing that we can continue to kick this can down the road. It's time to do something. And, you know, this is our job, and we got to quit researching and resolving. And I just wanted to quote a council member a few meetings ago about, you know, we can't do this all, resolve this all in a weekend. You know, this has been going on for a long time, and we owe to those elected who elected us to make this our highest priority. Thank you.
I concur with Councilman Huff. I've seen the city over the years make purchases of equipment, vehicles, fire equipment, facilities that were not of the highest standard. And cost cutting has to occur from time to time. I have the utmost confidence in our city manager and his professional staff to make sound decisions on behalf of our council, but we are here to direct them. And that is our job, and that is our responsibility. So I certainly understand in specific to this resolution about why it may be appropriate to buy refurbished equipment, but it has to meet a standard and a delivery time. We know all over this country, the pipeline is very slow right now for all types of things. So we have no idea, you know, when it comes time to make these decisions, what the availability of equipment will be, but we want to ensure that we have quality equipment. We were in litigation for many years about a piece of equipment that was refurbished that failed. We ended up getting a handsome settlement for that, but it kept us tied up in court for a long time. was a potentially very dangerous situation. So I don't feel the least bit concerned about putting some parameters around what our expectations are. I think it's really very fortunate that this item was postponed till tonight when we're struggling to supply enough power to our customers here at Independence and all across our partnership and the Southwest Power Pool. I am also wondering where our 50 megawatts is that we purchased from Onetta. How much we spent $2 million, we're spending $2 million and we're not getting that power. I didn't spend $2 million so people in Austin, Texas could have it. We have to take care of the city of Independence. This has got to be our #1 priority. I agree with that. This is not a situation, this situation that we are living through right now is not going to be something that happens once every 100 years. There's not enough power. That's a fact. This weather, whether it's extreme cold, extreme heat, extreme rain, extreme whatever, is a result of our changing climate, whatever you want to attribute that to, or the cyclical nature of our environment. And we're not prepared for it. Plain and simple. And it's causing an enormous amount of stress on our community right now. And, hindsight, of course, is always very clear in 2020. But I would like, and I will work with the city clerk to put this on the agenda for the study session next Monday to start the process of moving forward and making decisions on how we are going to provide the power that we need and how we are going to fund and finance the cost of that power. We do not need to wait for the PUAB to give us this direction. This direction's already been given. The priorities were already set. The priorities were to pay off debt. The priority was to do something about our excess revenue. The priority was to return money to the ratepayers. And the next priority is figure out how we're going to generate power for our community. We made a decision a long time ago that we were going to be a municipal utility. That's our identity in this city. They have pictures of the power plant hanging on walls and framed in places. They're in the archives at the Jackson County Historical Society. We are a city with our own power, and we're not providing it. So this is, I'm glad that we took a minute to relook at this and put a little bit more specificity on this item and bring it back tonight. I think it couldn't be better timing to be having this discussion. And I will be working with the city clerk to put an item on the agenda for Monday so we can continue to have this discussion, and we will have it every week until we, as far as I'm concerned, until we come to a decision about what we're going to do about this situation. So other discussion.
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
No, I appreciate what you have said, and Councilmember Huff as well. The fact is that we've been hit with 2 days of just uncertainty. Folks are just, I can't remember a day in my short time where I literally spent the majority of my day on the phone trying to ease people's fears and concerns. I have a daughter who lives in Dallas, works for Goldman. She said to me today, she said, gosh, if you guys would have had your power plant up and running, you'd be printing money right now. Those were her words. I mean, that's how much money we've lost out on just by not being a generator of energy. Energy is the new gold, and the demand for it is going to become greater and greater with less generation plants. This is what's so concerning to me. When you look at how many coal plants are going to be taken offline, and I read today how the car manufacturers are going to start mass producing electric cars. Well, there's going to be more and more demand on the grid, and our people need to have the assurance that as a city that has a power plant, that we will be in the production business. And I have to tell you, I am deeply concerned when I hear council members say we should just sell it, sell the plant, be done with it. Why? So I would say that people are asking us to take the time to research this, to get involved, to bring together a plan, understand that money is cheap. Now's the time for us to start looking at the new plant that we need to build to generate energy. Yes, it's volatile. We've already established that. With great risk comes great reward. We have to have a plan in place to be able to generate this power. And we have the golden ticket. I don't understand why this is even an issue, but I really think that our people deserve a council that's going to get their feet wet in this and really begin to tackle the issue of building a plant that creates and sells, generates power for its community, and help pay for it through that generation effort. It can be done, and it's going to require us to really take the bull by the horns. And after the last 2 days, I wouldn't even think this is part of the discussion. We'd all be saying, yes, we need to do that. And I hope tonight, if we can be honest, if it's not something you're excited about, be honest with us. But it's something that we absolutely need to tackle head on, and know that as we press forward, we need to make sure as a city that we understand that by building a plant, by coming into agreement that we need to be generating our own power so that we're not in this place ever again. I lived 5 years in LA, never experienced one blackout until today. This was my first blackout, and guess what? I'm not in California anymore. I'm in Missouri. Experienced my first blackout. I chose a city called Burbank to live there. Why? Because they had their own power plant, and we never had issues of having a gray out or a blackout. So enough is enough. We don't need to let unqualified people in the special interest in this city tell us what we need to be doing. We need to make decisions that are right for this city, and I hope that we take it on. And Mayor, looking forward to your leadership in that effort to bring a power plant back online in this city.
Further discussion on this item?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Councilman Hobart.
I'd just like to make it clear to everybody that this city generated base load power from 1955 until whenever Blue Valley went offline last year, or 2018. And what that got us was $250 million in debt. IPL is $250 million in debt. But because our residents experienced 20 minutes or 30 minutes of a power outage, we now need to go $500 million in debt. I just want to make sure everybody understands what this is. You know, Texas is on their own grid. The bulk of Texas is on their own. 90% of Texas is on its own grid. They have 77 gigawatt, not gigawatts, is it gigawatts? 77 gigawatts of production power. They lost 34 gigawatts, went offline. 26 of the 34 gigawatts that went offline was natural gas and coal-fired plants. The machines froze, the pipes froze. So the big failure here is not green energy. The big failure was natural gas and coal. I get that this is a great time to be opportunistic and to try to continue to scare the residents of Independence. that we need to go as in debt as we possibly can right now. I get that. But whatever plan we pick, if it is a giant power plant or if it's a peaking engine, whatever it is, it needs to make sense economically and not as a perspective. We're plugged into a grid. You want to sell our power that we make to the grid to other people? Guess who you're competing with? You're competing with every single company on that grid, which includes private enterprise, which has proven to be more effective and more efficient at producing power. They produce profit for their stockholders. We're $250 million in debt. You want to talk about a smart business decision or a council that cares? Let's try not to ruin the city financially. That's all I have.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, just a moment, Councilmember DeLucci. Do we not all agree that we are losing our ability to generate power to meet the needs of our community? We're relying on 6 CTs that are limping along. That is undisputable. Those we have to replace what we're currently, I mean, even if we didn't generate an extra megawatt, we got to replace what we currently have. We have an obligation to do that. So this isn't about fear. This is about, this situation got a lot of people's attention. Let me just put it to you that way, that it got a lot of people's attention. And yes, we have the ability right now to turn on those CTs and produce power. And we have ways to produce power, but those ways are going away. So we have to make this urgent, because otherwise we're not going to have, I just don't know how we can look our citizens in the eye and just let this go away. And if you want to, and if anybody here is talking about selling Independence Power and Light, after we've worked so hard to reduce costs, I understand we have a lot of debt. That debt didn't get here overnight, and it's not going to go away overnight. But we've reduced cost significantly at Independence Power and Light. We've reduced staffing significantly at Independence Power and Light, more than any council in history. We were able to do a rate reduction, and we were able to return some money to the ratepayers. If you go sell Independence Power and Light, there's going to be a rate increase the next day. It'll blow you away. And our citizens are going to have to pay that. And they're not going to be mad at the energy company who raised their rate. They're going to be mad at the council who let that happen. And I'm not going to let that happen. When I'm dead and gone, that can happen. But right now we have an obligation to at least have a plan to maintain what we currently have and meet our obligations to our partners and to our citizens and our ratepayers. Councilmember DeLucci.
I just want to make it clear to the citizens, this ordinance only, this non-ordinance action item only directs the city manager not to consider certain generation machine solutions that are not new or certified remanufactured according to the manufacturer. This resolution does not talk about a power plant. It does not talk about purchasing power from any place else. I just want to make everybody very clear on that. This is a very narrow ordinance. My objection to it was simply, I did not believe that our experts needed our direction on something so basic. That's it.
Yes, and you're correct, Councilmember DeLucci. Thanks for clarifying that. This is simply about providing direction about what our expectations are for quality. We're not making any purchases this evening, but it does certainly is very timely discussion to continue to have, and I will make sure that we do continue to have it. Are there any other questions on or comments on this item?
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
One thing I did want to stress there is that, our water company sells water every day, and that's why our rates are cheaper in Independence than anywhere else. It's a good footprint for Power and Light. Number two is, I don't know that I really clarified this, but as these power plants shut down, the reliability really starts fading. And next year, next summer even, it could be 100 degrees, they're going to cut it loose. Next winter, it could be 30 degrees. As far, and I preach this and preach this, when these coal fires go down, for good, that is a base load. I don't think a few council members understand what this deal is. And to say that the reason why Texas failed is because of the power plants is absolutely crazy. A quarter of wind power a quarter of the power generated in Texas is by windmills, a quarter of it. So when you shut down a quarter of it because the windmills are frozen and the solar panels have snow on them and they don't do anything, they go and they fire up all the units that haven't been fired up. That drained the gas. That has caused us to have a gas issue in the Midwest. It has nothing to do with frozen pipes. It has, Texas had to go into their stuff that's been sitting there because they've been bragging about their windmills for years. They wanted to be a windmill state. And a fourth of their power, like I said, is generated by windmills. When they froze up, they don't have de-icers like they do on airplanes. These babies froze up, dropped that. They didn't have enough megawatts to support the people down there. They went to fire up their coal fire and gas units, which had not been fired up for a long time. They drained the gas supply. So let's get our things together if we're going to be an expert on this and go out here and tell people we're trying to scare people into this. I'm not trying to scare nobody. This is reality. This is happening. We've seen it for the last 2 days and it's not over with. That's all I have.
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
I'd just like to remind the council too that it doesn't matter whether it's 20 minutes or 30 minutes or 40 minutes. And I had some people call me that said they were out well over an hour and they had their pipes freezing. One of them was on our police department. So I can tell you that this conversation would be very different if we were facing a blackout in the summertime when people are warm and they could or hot, they can open up a windows. But when you're in this type of cold, I mean, -9 this morning, it's a little different scenario. No one's trying to scare anybody. I genuinely think that we are short-sighted when we think that it was no big deal. It's 20 minutes. My dad was on oxygen last year with lung cancer, stage 4, was dying. If we'd have had even 30 minutes out on that oxygen, that would have been really hard on them. And I can't imagine the people that were at home that suffered some type of outage that have a reliance on electricity for their medical care or treatments. So, you know, again, I wonder where we can be heartless and think that we're trying to scare people. This is not about scaring anybody. This is about leadership. And I am grateful that we are now serious about looking for answers to IPL and that we need to make some serious decisions. And I'm just grateful that we're at least talking about it. And I think now it's time for some action.
Okay. Further discussion? Hearing none. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll on non-ordinance action item number 1.
Councilmember Hoff?
Absolutely, yes.
Perkins?
Yes.
Stewart?
Yes.
DeLucy?
No.
Steinmeier?
Yes.
Hobart?
No.
Mayor Weir?
Yeah. Item passes. First readings, Madam City Clerk.
We actually have 1 second reading, Mayor.
Oh, I'm sorry. I scribbled all over my paper and I missed it. Go ahead. With
21
yes.
21-006, an ordinance amending 1.28.002 of the Independent City Code to increase membership on the Human Relations Commission. Second and final reading.
Is there any discussion on this bill? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Huff?
Yes.
Perkins?
Yes.
Stewart?
Yes.
DeLucy?
Yes.
Steinmeier,
Yes.
Hobart,
Yes.
Mayor Ware.
Yes. Ordinance passes. Now on to our first readings.
Bill number 21-007, an ordinance finding, determining, and declaring the necessity of acquiring temporary construction and grading easements and general utility easements for the Bristol Drainage Improvements Project, project number 701311902, authorizing the negotiation and eminent domain proceedings if necessary, approving the plan specifications for the project, authorizing the use of experts as needed, authorizing and directing the execution of documents and the payment of funds to property owners or others holding property rights in conjunction with the project. Bill number 21-008, an ordinance repealing Chapter 2, alcoholic beverages, and adding a new Chapter 2, alcoholic beverages of the City Code.
This brings us to on our information only. I just want to draw your attention to particularly our COVID-19 semi-monthly update. Make sure that the community knows that that is always available. And this takes us to council member comments. I will start with Councilman Hobart.
I just wanted to thank tonight very briefly all the folks that showed up to talk on the various topics. It's really nice to see that people are paying attention and being involved with the issues before the council. So other than that, obviously I do hope that folks were able to stay warm the best that they could and that they suffered as little as possible. So good rest of the week to everybody.
Thank you. Councilman Steinmeier.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to just reaffirm to our constituents, so many that have called today with their concerns. We've heard you, and we understand some of the fears, some of the frustrations that we experienced the last couple of days. These are things that we're going to address in this city. These are commitments that we need to make back to you. That these moments that we've shared in the last couple days with blackouts, some longer than others, we understand that. I think we've learned a lot about our communication in our city, what we could do better, what we could have done to improve it. But all in all, I'd say we did the best we could with a situation that didn't give us much notice. So kudos to the folks at the city. Thank you for our guys that are out plowing in the extreme cold. I heard you last night come down my street at about 3 o'clock in the morning. Thank you for being out there. It's a tough job and it's a cold job. And I want to just say thank you to our street department for making those efforts. Madam Mayor, I look forward to continued leadership in the most pressing issues, and I'm here to help you where I can. So thank you, everybody. Stay warm and stay safe and stay healthy tonight.
Thank you. Councilmember DeLucci.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. City Hall was open today, and I'm thrilled, and I want everybody to understand that we've made baby steps and we've opened the City Hall. You still have to do the social distancing and the masks, and they will have their temperature taken and all the smart moves, but City Hall is open. I would suggest that perhaps we publicize on our Facebook page or the city webpage actual emergency numbers for people. I had somebody call who only gets water from Independence. She doesn't get electricity, and she telephoned in to because her water wasn't working because of the cold, and she was only directed to the electric utility line, and so she didn't go to that. And I said, no, you go to that, but she didn't understand that. So if we could go ahead and have emergency numbers, simply put it on the Facebook page. I think that's a pretty good disseminator of information, and the city webpage, you know? That's the only suggestion I have. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Councilmember Stewart.
I have nothing tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Councilmember Perkins.
Thanks, Mayor. I just want to give a shout out to the Rotary Club for their fundraising event that they have for the Mardi Gras for Inglewood Arts. They raised over $300,000 last week for this cause. So things are happening and things are moving good. And that $300,000 will go a long way for their goal of, I believe it's 2 million. So they're pretty darn close now. So congratulations to them.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was a great night. Councilmember Huff.
Yes, I just want to go with Mr. Councilman Steinmeier on the snow removal crews. That they've been out there around the clock. Every time it stops, they about get there. Here comes another snow. Also, police and fire. We've had quite a few wrecks, and the policemen are out there. 35th and Nolan, traffic signal box got tore up real bad. I was out there for hours out in the cold. The only thing that I'd like to see, this would be towards our city manager, on these outages, especially when they're scheduled as such. Understand that when SPP calls and says, hey, shed your load, then you have so much time to react. And, you know, and I understand that part of it. Been there, done that. When they do that first call and they said, like this morning, for instance, at 7 o'clock, the first one hit, when I was down there, unless things have changed, there is a list of the way they go at it. So they do it by circuits, most times like 2 or 3 circuits at a time. They do it through dispatch. And then, of course, they move to the next bunch of them. That's all scheduled. It's all written down. It's all documented as part of FERC. It's part of SPP. All these people that get involved in that, you know, we have to have that plan. I would just like to see, and I know communication is so fragmented. It's, you know, you get on the social media, TV and everything. It's so hard to get that word out. And so I know that I caught a lot of phone calls, and I'm sure everyone else did. If we could be a little bit better about maybe getting that word out. I don't know how particularly, but I did get some calls today that our outage management map was not online. Probably didn't help us. I don't know. Like I said, when we know after the first one that in 20 minutes or 30 minutes or whatever we're going to do the other ones, it would be nice to somehow notify people to let them know. I know my parents went to the doctor this morning and forgot all about once the lights are out, they couldn't get the car out of the garage. So stuff like that does affect people. But other than that, kudos to our city servants. I think they've all done a fantastic job. Thank you, Mayor.
Yes, it's been very challenging, obviously, for everybody. And I'm very proud of our staff. I'm extremely proud of our community. People have done a great job just staying home, you know, staying out of the way, letting us get out there and do the things that we need to do to get the streets clear, to get the power restored for things that weren't planned, which those are occurring as well in this weather. Our police and fire, of course, responding to the accidents and the emergencies. We have learned, we've been in a state of emergency for almost the entire year, but the current emergency is the one that takes precedence, and dealing with that on the top of the pandemic that we're coping with every single solitary day is a real credit to our staff and our residents, our community, our business owners, and people who support each other in this town and make sure that they're looking out for each other. Good news, we are advertising for a digital content manager for the city to provide some additional help in our communications. Our public information officer and her staff of 2 people, excuse me, have an incredible task. incredible. I mean, trying to provide all of the information to our citizens when they're, you know, just trying to understand what's going on is an incredible undertaking, and they've done a remarkable job. And I'm very, very pleased that we are going to be able to add back a position that we eliminated when the pandemic hit, to provide some more support there. We're also in discussions, you know, we're always getting calls and meeting people who have services that maybe could help the city. So those, you know, I'm fortunate to be part of those many of the times, or make those connections. But we always want to be innovative. We always want to, the most frustrating thing for all of us is when citizens don't say, I didn't know that this was such and such was going to happen. Now, some of these things, of course, none of us can plan for and notify them effectively, but that's something we'll continue to work on. I did also want to, speaking of our communications team, it is Black History Month. We are doing something different this year for Black History Month. Typically, I do a proclamation recognizing Black History Month, but we are doing programming throughout the month to celebrate the achievements of Black communities in American history, Black individuals and their accomplishments. So those will be posted on our social media pages. Obviously, our social media channels and website have been dedicated to this current emergency, but those will be arriving, and some of them have already been posted. Stories from people in our community, essays, videos, interviews. Last evening, I participated in the Truman Roundtable discussion group focused on Black History Month, and that video about panel discussion, which was excellent, will be posted online as well. So I didn't want to neglect to bring attention to that, which is very important in our community. And I think we're really developing some great content that people will enjoy and learn a lot from. Mr. City Manager, is there anything else this evening?
Nothing tonight. Thank you.
We are adjourned.